Well, it's one of the hottest songs on radio today. Look at all the charts. That is Luke Combs' remake of Tracy Chapman's Fast Car. Honestly, I've been surprised. You've heard a lot of non-country radio stations playing that song. That's how hot this song is. And for many of us, I always enjoyed Tracy Chapman's version. I think it's a great song. And Luke Combs redid it, and it has become a number one hit, of which he has had many. As what I would say is right now the top artist in country music, Luke Combs. He was just here at Arrowhead a few weeks ago. Had a sold-out crowd, right? So this song, Fast Car, this remake, I'm not even telling the funny part of the story yet, John, but you're already laughing.
Oh, I'd say, yeah, Luke was here. We did the merchandise truck, renamed streets after him and stuff. No, he's certainly on a roll, definitely.
He's on a roll, and I've been surprised. A lot of non-country stations are playing that song that I'm hearing right now.
Not a big country fan, but I do like his stuff.
He does. I'm a big fan of his, too. And this remake has been absolutely outstanding. But that's not sitting well with some. The Washington Post writes this story over the weekend that has gone viral for all the wrong reasons. The headline, Tracy Chapman, Luke Combs, and the complicated response to Fast Car. Here we go. I needed a deep breath before I started this with you. I had to just reset. Because you know where this is going, but it's even worse than you expect. The Washington Post writes here, Tracy Chapman's Fast Car is one of those songs that you just feel in your soul. The lyrics about the yearning to escape, the gentle guitar underlying a feeling of despair, but also the hope that something better is coming. It can make you cry, but also inspire you to belt out the lyrics at the top of your lungs. Singers know that virtually any audience will hear the opening notes and go crazy, so it has become a go-to cover song since its release in 1988. But in the past few months, one particular cover has struck a chord that nobody saw coming. All right, let's get to the good part here. To quite a few, Luke Combs' cover is cause for yet another celebration in his whirlwind journey as the genre's reigning megastar with 16 consecutive number one hits. But it also has prompted a wave of complicated feelings among some listeners and in the Nashville music community. Although many are thrilled to see Fast Car back in the spotlight and a new generation discovering Chapman's works, it's clouded by the fact that as a black queer woman, Chapman would have almost zero chance of that achievement herself in country music. Now stop right there.
Please.
Stop right there.
Please.
And John will go back to his old, I'm going to have John go down memory lane here in a second to his old music DJ days here around Kansas City. But I just want to remind you the facts of Fast Car by Tracy Chapman, which was nominated for 3 Grammy Awards, including Record of the Year and Song of the Year. And she won Best Female Pop Vocal Performance and Best New Artist, and has 7 other nominations for Grammy Awards and 2 wins, John. But take us down memory lane and how many times you remember playing Fast Car in the late 80s.
Oh, yeah. We played that one at Q104, and it was always, you're up-tempo at top 40, and that song was always like hitting the brakes, time it with a calendar. So it was very popular, but you're sitting there and you're like, oh, boy, this one slows the world down.
But you played it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It was very popular. It's just one of those songs where I'm going, I'm missing the appeal here, but that's okay.
That's okay. You played it because it was popular, right?
Absolutely.
Because the audience wanted to hear it.
Absolutely.
While I understand it slowed down top 40, the audience wanted to hear the song.
Well, it was like an it thing. Top 40 has that about every 3 months. Somebody comes along, and they're the person to celebrate, if you will. And so that was a debut artist. You're like, hey, all right, nice effort here, right?
And absolutely.
Right.
So the people love the song.
Nominations. There you go.
It got Grammy nominations. It won awards. Tracy Chapman's won awards. But the core of this Washington Post piece goes on to suggest that Luke Combs, who has redone Fast Car and turned it into a number one 35 years after it came out, is somehow a suggestion that a white country male has remade a song and made it a hit without noting the history of this song and the fact that this song was played all over radio and that the song was nominated for 3 Grammys and that Tracy Chapman won the award for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance and Best New Artist as a black gay woman. So right out of the gates, the premise of this Washington Post piece is complete BS. But it doesn't stop there, because then what they want to do in this Washington Post article is suggest that country music is inherently attracted towards people who are not diverse. The Washington Post goes on the right here. The numbers are bleak. A recent study by data journalists report that fewer than 0.5% of songs played on country radio in 2022 were by women of color and LGBTQ plus artists. Watson's previous work shows that songs by women of color and LGBTQ plus artists were largely excluded from radio playlists for most of the 2 decades prior. Now, hold on a second here. If I were to go to some of the hip-hop stations here around Kansas City, how many white guys are on there? How many guys that look like me are getting spun on the R&B hip-hop stations around Kansas City? Is it possible, and follow me on this, is it possible that different kinds of people are attracted to different kinds of artists and different kinds of music?
What?
I know. Gasp. Gasp. It is amazing how that works. I mean, has anyone since Eminem had the kind of impact as a white rapper, which is going back 20, 25 years at this point? I don't really care. I don't complain about it. I liked Eminem. I also liked other rappers at the time who weren't white because I liked the music. There's another novel concept. Maybe certain people are attracted to certain kinds of music based on how they grew up, where they live, what their interests are, what their lifestyles are like. But if you were to just read the Washington Post, you would be told, and you would be left to assume, that country music is inherently racist and homophobic and everything else. When that argument is never made the other way, right? The argument is never suggested of, boy, we got to really diversify the rap scene in this country. It's just,
right.
Boy, it is.
Not enough Republicans, not enough Christians over here on this format.
Well,
This is a series of articles, an expose, right? No.
That is, yeah.
That kind of ends with the first installment.
Yeah, this is it. This is the first and last installment. So here's another great quote in this Washington Post article. This is from Holly G., founder of the Black Opry, which is an organization for black country music singers and fans. Holly G. tells the Washington Post, on one hand, Luke Combs is an amazing artist, and it's great to see that someone in country music is influenced by a black queer woman. That's really exciting. By the way, that's an assumption. Maybe he's just influenced by a great song, because songs mean different things to all of us. Why are we looking at Tracy Chapman as nothing more than a black queer woman, instead of saying this woman wrote one of the great songs and catchiest songs of the past 35 years, which I believe it is. I love Tracy Chapman's version. I love Luke Combs' version. But why are we... See, when they try to promote diversity, all they're really doing is breaking down individuals to nothing more than their gender, their sexual preferences, and their skin color. Why not say Tracy Chapman is a wildly talented songwriter and musician who wrote this great song that people connect with, that now the next generation has remade and Luke Combs has turned into a number one hit? Nope, she's nothing more than a queer black woman. Well, that seems unfair to her. But this Holly G., founder of the Black Opry, tells the Washington Post, but at the same time, it's really hard to lean into that excitement knowing that Tracy Chapman would not be celebrated in the industry without that kind of middleman being a white man. Boy, you want to talk about a wild assumption that has no factual basis to it. There's the quote that you need. That's it right there. But there's much more here. There's much more that I don't want to lose sight of. Because what about Tracy Chapman's thoughts, right? Here's the Washington Post fluffing up this idea that country music in general doesn't support someone like Tracy Chapman, would never support someone like Tracy Chapman. Well, is Tracy Chapman going to jump on board with the Washington Post? We'll tell you what she said. It will surprise you. Coming up next, Pete Mundo on a Monday morning. Great to be back. Jay Ashcroft, top of the hour on KCMO. Well, there's no doubt that Luke Combs has done an outstanding job remaking this song, and it has led to another number one for Luke Combs, remaking Tracy Chapman's Fast Car. But because instead of looking at Luke Combs and saying, wow, here's this guy who remade this song from 35 years ago, he's turned it into a country hit, that's awesome, and that's great for Tracy Chapman, who, by the way, how much money has Tracy Chapman made off of Luke Combs? Yep. Yeah, ka-ching! How much money has she made off of this? Instead of saying, wow, this is a great story, to the Washington Post, it has to be controversial. It has to be a story about racism and homophobia and everything else that they presume country music to be. That's why this article was written. Headline, Tracy Chapman, Luke Combs, and the complicated response to Fast Car in the Washington Post. And they go on to say that Tracy Chapman, as a gay black woman, could never achieve this kind of success. Luke Combs only got it this successful because, well, he's a white, straight guy, despite the fact that Fast Car was nominated for 3 Grammys, including Record of the Year and Song of the Year. Tracy Chapman won for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance and Best New Artist, and she's got 7 other nominations for Grammy Awards and 2 wins. You would think that Tracy Chapman, as the Washington Post writes this fluff piece, would be compelled to jump on board here. But let's give Tracy Chapman an enormous amount of credit. So Tracy Chapman has put out one statement about Luke Combs in this song. And the statement is read as follows. Tracy Chapman said in a brief statement last week to Billboard, not to the Washington Post, and this is the only statement she's put out publicly about the song. I never expected to find myself on the country charts, but I'm honored to be there. I'm happy for Luke and his success and grateful that new fans have found and embraced Fast Car. That's awesome. That is a perfect statement from Tracy Chapman. Hey, it's good for her. It's good for the original song. She's making money off this. She's happy for Luke, happy for his success. She's honored to be there. That's it. So the Washington Post reached out to her for comments on this article, and Chapman declined further comment for this story. Tracy Chapman told the Washington Post to pound sand. Where's Ric Flair? Good for her. I love you, Tracy. That's great. Woo! That's right. No doubt about it. And obviously, Luke Combs' publicist said he was unavailable for an interview, also telling the Washington Post to pound sand, which we should all be doing. But the fact that Tracy Chapman is not taking the bait, the fact that Tracy Chapman is telling the Washington Post to take a hike. Now, maybe deep down she somewhat agrees with the Washington Post, but at least she's smart enough from a business perspective to say, I'm not putting myself in the middle of this. I'm just trying to cash these fat checks courtesy of Luke Combs remaking the song. That's what I've got going on right now. Because this article from the Washington Post does read like satire. And I'll leave you with this part of the article and then get to you at 913-408-7710. Washington Post writes here, there's been a concerted effort for some in Nashville to promote inclusivity, particularly since the industry-wide reckoning after the killing of George Floyd in 2020. Huh? What does the killing of George Floyd have to do with the makeup of country music? That sentence makes absolutely no sense to anybody with any common sense. The Washington Post goes on to note, but despite some individual success stories, the systemic lack of diversity has persisted. Now that Chapman's classic is on pace to become one of the biggest songs of Combs' career, there are uneasy and complex emotional responses. Really? The artist herself has no issue that she's put out publicly. But of course, in an era and a time when becoming a victim is important for branding and moves your own career forward, well, leave it to other folks to jump on that bandwagon very quickly, John.
Yeah. It's kind of the age-old trope of it's lazy journalism to me because the story's been told since Elvis had hits and he was borrowing from, from R&B records, Mississippi Country Boy, Elvis. And we went through it in the 60s, Led Zeppelin's ripping off Muddy Waters and that kind of stuff, So if we can whip up a little something here and to a younger audience that doesn't know what I just said, then we can get some fresh outrage going.
And it's all about the outrage, all about dividing us based on race, gender, sex, everything else. Scott's in North KC. Scott, I got a minute. What's up, my man?
And I'm going way back in time here. A few months before Tracy's song came out, an album called Shadowland did very well in the country music market, especially with women. It was put out by a performer who looked like a young Wayne Newton, was Canadian, was female. Her name was Katie Lang. Nobody made any noise about anything about her being a Canadian, if you catch my drift. Barbara Walters, a few years later, tried to get Katie Lang to come out. Katie Lang wouldn't take the bait. The mainstream media likes raw meat. The only reason Katie Lang fell from grace was she started pushing animal rights, especially for cows. That didn't do too good in the country music field. It had nothing to do with her sexuality. No, the mainstream media wants to throw out meat. The thing is, do people bite the meat? That's the thing.
And you know what? Give Tracy Chapman credit. Good job, Scott, for not taking the bait on their bogus article. So good. So good.